And speaking of men who are on that list is XXXTentacion. He died in June of 2018 at the very young age of 20 years old. He had released 2 albums during his lifetime, and since then 2 more have come out post-mortem. And I just remember when I heard about this, and I was at work and I was having a shitty ass day. I remember the only silver lining was at least I heard about that at the very end of the day, because I don't know how I would have actually finished that day of work had that not been the case. And I think I was like breaking down as I was leaving the office. And I know why. It's difficult to talk about, but this was a guy who was very complicated. He had done some really fucked up shit, but nonetheless, he was also young at that time and very much so a product of his environment. And what I had seen in the couple years that he had been on my radar was a striving effort of someone to improve themselves and someone who was trying to reach back to other people who had been through what he'd been through. And sometimes there's a little bit of a delay between when you make the change and when other people around you recognize that change. And I think that he was in that delay period between when he had made a change and when the rest of popular culture began to see that. And it made me just so sad to see him cut down before he got the chance to really turn it around in the public's eye. And it made me so sad to see someone who clearly was going through so much pain and anger in their music not really live long enough to see the real resolution of that sometimes comes with age and maturity. He had so much potential. Just like Pete, this was the other person who I thought of this new generation that he would be the torchbearer. So much so that it is like 2 posthumous albums, even the unfinished cuts are some of the better songs that I've heard of those years when those albums came out. It's just so sad, man.
Yeah, man. X was one of the few people who, like, their death really, like, messed me up. Like, cause I remember the day when I heard about him too. And I just remember I had like something in my hand and like I heard about it and I just freaking punched a hole through like whatever I had in my hand. I don't even remember, but I think I just like threw it or like broke it or some shit. Cause I was just so upset. I was like, fuck, like what a waste. Of all the people who I feel like could have really changed the rap game for the positive, you know, shown Black youth that like you can make it in a positive way. Like, yeah, you can have a bad history, but you can actually overcome that and feed your family and make, you know, great music that can be relatable to everybody. And X was not only an artist, X was a revolutionary. Like the things that he spoke about and the outlook that he had at such a young age, at, you know, passing away at 20 years old, is remarkable to me. Like one of the things I always remember him saying in interviews was that he didn't want to say his age because people would judge him and they would, you know, put a limit as to his intelligence. I honestly feel like he had an intelligence level that was beyond a normal person. Like he had something that we honestly needed in the rap game. And he had a level of, I'm not going to say wokeness because that term is used a lot, but he had a level of awareness about the human race and about emotion and about, you know, the solitude of a society and the isolation we live in, and that not a lot of artists do or even still don't have. Like he was years beyond his time.
Yeah, I
And
think that like, man, that self-awareness that you're talking about and that just like emotional intelligence is really like it makes it hard to live, you know, because you're coming up in hard times, especially, I mean, he didn't live to 2020, but what if he had? This is such a depressing year in general. And it's like when you are sensitive to those things, like I heard that pain in
yeah,
his music, the pain of trying to figure this shit all out. And I think that's what really made me gravitate to and empathize with this man was just as a Black man, you know, I empathize with that demonization that happens to you. And I know how so many of the terrible situations that we can just be born into lend themselves to us being contributors to our own destruction. And so often that ends up manifesting itself in violent acts towards people who don't deserve it, which is what happened in X's case. And that's not to make an excuse, because it's still terrible. And I think he did also do his time for what happened and was still trying to make amends for that. But besides that, I just know how easy it is for us to get typecasted and stereotyped in that box of just the aggressive, dangerous person. And I know how that stereotype has directly led to our own, destruction and our own violence to us at the hands of police and others who choose to view us in that way, and how being viewed in that way has made us being able to be classified as super aggressors, which is why children can get tried as adults. And so seeing all of that and seeing him as a product of all of that made me so invested in wanting to see him triumph over it. And if not for him, if not him, I hope at least his music will maybe inspire the next person to be able to triumph over those circumstances.
Yeah, like I agree with you. He definitely was coming around. He was doing, so many, I think Helping Hands was one of the fundraisers he was doing. He was doing something too, I think the Saturday before he got shot, he was going to do some type of fundraiser. Like he really was trying to change his life. Like you're saying, there's sometimes a delay in that. I also love X because, he was just so upfront about depression. And I feel like Lil Peep was also like that, and Juice WRLD as well. Like I love artists that aren't afraid to show you who they are, and not just some type of persona or some type of lifestyle that like they live. Like X had money, he had, all tons of fans, but he never let that, affect his music. And one thing that I love about X as well is he really didn't have a genre. Like he was able to do so many different types of music. If you hear the Question Mark album, that album is amazing because the way he's able to, he put a question mark because it's like you can't really, what is it, like it's just good music. Like it's positive music. Like any song he put out on that album was like fire in different ways. So yeah, and I think if he was still around, he would be probably like a huge artist.
He's
And
such
he
a
was just
great
cut down in his
artist, man.
prime. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Also, like he's one of the people I forget have passed away some days, and like when it hits me and I look at his face, I just can't believe it's real. Like I really still can't
Yeah.
believe it's real till this
It's
day.
still raw sometimes, man. Uh, uh, shit.
So funny.
Yeah, man. I mean, that first album, Jesus Christ. That first album was just perfect.
I still bump it to
So
this day.
cohesive. I know it could just make you feel. It could just take you to such a dark place and just hold you there.
Yeah.
That's art, man. That's real art.
And he put a lot of himself into that. You can feel it. That is
Mm.
him. That's
Some
his
of the
thing.
best art ever made in history, no matter what platform, has been made by some people who are in the worst spaces. It's kind of sad that like our own suffering can lead to that, but it's beautiful that your suffering can at least manifest itself into something so beautiful. Like
Yep.
that something so amazing can come from something so bad.
Yeah. Yep. You're
Yeah.
100% right.